Hello and welcome. Thank you for being here. This video is going to cover beta-alanine supplementation and hopefully give you a better idea of what beta-alanine supplementation actually does, because most influencers, supplement companies get this wrong too, and by extension of that, hopefully give you a better idea of if this is something that is of interest to you, and furthermore, explain how to go about supplementing with beta-alanine for best results. Now, real fast, before we dive into any of the meat and potatoes of this video, I did want to note that this paper right here is going to be the overarching reference for all the information you'll find here. It is the ISSN's position stand on beta-alanine. They have a number of these sort of research review papers that I would consider the authoritative papers on each of the topics that they have covered. They do tend to be quite data heavy, which can make them kind of hard to read through. So a lot of what I hope to cover in this video is explain the pertinent points that would be relevant to you without too much of the scientific jargon. But nevertheless, I do want to be clear about where I'm actually getting this information from. I will link this below if you want to have access to the original paper for all this information. All right, so the plan for today is really just as what follows here. So we're going to talk about what beta-alanine actually is, what it does inside your body, how its doings inside your body affects your performance and exercise, how to dose it, potential side effects that you may experience with beta-alanine supplementation, and then some final thoughts on me about how should this be prioritized and other things like that. So real fast, let's talk about what beta-alanine actually is. Now, this is the structure of beta-alanine that I kind of drew up on Canva. It doesn't really mean anything, but I thought it just might be nice to kind of see it. Now, beta-alanine is what's called a non-proteogenic, should say proteogenic, although I think that's also an accepted term, a non-proteogenic amino acid. Now, amino acids, if you're not aware, are the sort of building blocks of protein, right? So if a protein is a long chain of beads, each individual bead is an amino acid. Amino acids that are incorporated into protein are called proteogenic amino acids. There are other amino acids that play roles in our body that are called non-proteogenic amino acids, meaning they still have that same sort of basic structure, but they're not incorporated into the longer chains that are proteins. Alanine is a normal proteogenic amino acid. Beta-alanine, what we're talking about today, is the non-proteogenic version of that amino acid. Furthermore, in most mammals, beta-alanine is naturally produced in the liver, so it's not this sort of like lab concocted chemical. It is a naturally occurring substance. Now, in regard to what beta-alanine does in the body, it's not really about what beta-alanine does, but what carnosine does, right? So as I say here, beta-alanine is converted into carnosine in the muscle. The reason you don't supplement with carnosine itself, as I note here, is that it would get destroyed in the stomach and not make it to your muscles. So by choosing to supplement with beta-alanine, it can make it all the way to your muscles. And in any case, beta-alanine is the limiting factor in the endogenous formation of carnosine in your body. So by supplementing with that limiting factor, your body is able to make more carnosine and then get the benefits that we're going to speak about next. So when you perform exercise, primarily using the fast glycolytic energy system, this is one of the three major energy systems of your body. It is the energy system that produces a high amount of lactate and acid in your muscles and in the blood. And it is the energy system that is primarily used in activities where you are hitting fatigue within 1 to 4 minutes. Now, the numbers you see on that will vary source to source and by textbook to textbook and study to study. The overall idea is that it's somewhere in that ballpark. Some places you'll see 30 seconds to 3 minutes. I wouldn't get too caught in the weeds there. The general idea is that somewhere in the ballpark of 1 to 4 minutes, the fast glycolytic energy system, the one that produces a high amount of lactate and acid, is the major contributor to exercise. And furthermore, that acid buildup in the muscle can limit further muscle contraction and further energy production. So carnosine, what beta-alanine turns into, acts as a base and it buffers this acid buildup. And so the fatiguing and limiting effects of this acid buildup are prolonged and pushed off until later in the exercise. So in line with that, anything you do in which you would hit fatigue somewhere between 1 to 4 minutes would be improved by beta-alanine supplementation. Now, I should note is that within exercise, it's not that only one energy system contributes to exercise at a single time. All of them contribute all at the same time, except it's just a matter of which energy system is predominantly contributing the energy. Now, energy systems itself might sound a confusing topic if you're not familiar with that. I do have a pretty brief article outlining, what you want to know from just a knowledge and a training perspective. I'll link that below, so you can also check that out if you'd like. It should be a pretty quick read through. Now, to think through simply what this fatiguing within 1 to 4 minutes means, it could just mean something as simple as performing running max effort for a minute, running max effort for 2 minutes, running max effort for 3 minutes, or cycling, swimming, max out within those distances or within those time periods. Another way you can think about it is through activities in which you would hit fatigue somewhere within this time period. So, I'll put a few here. So 800 meters or a half mile of a run. Now, as far as running goes, I would say a 6-minute mile, being able to run a mile within 6 minutes or within 6 minutes time is one of those things that's kind of a real landmark, right? Where you say, okay, this person's pretty good. This person's serious about running. And I would say that kind of similar in the way that a 225 bench is one of those things within lifting that is kind of a big landmark. Just based off of that, you can see why an 800-meter run would be benefited by beta-alanine supplementation for most individuals. Now, to be clear, running like a mile, let's say a person could run a 6-minute mile or a 7-minute mile or an 8-minute mile or whatever the case is, even like an 8-minute bout, which is double the time frame we're putting here, that probably would be benefited from beta-alanine supplementation, just not to the degree, wow, that in similarly high repetition weightlifting, if you're assuming a set that is 20 reps and you're using control and tempo, so something like 2 to 3 seconds on the way down and a fast lift up, that's going to take you probably over a minute, and therefore it's going to start to become benefited by beta-alanine supplementation. I would go as far as to say most bouts of swimming will be benefited from beta-alanine supplementation, especially because breathing is a little bit inhibited. And then finally, you can imagine that if you're playing, let's say you're playing pickleball or you're playing soccer or basketball, you can imagine those sports are bouts of high intensity work interspersed by longer duration, lower intensity bouts of easier work. Even if you don't hit fatigue within those intermittent high intensity bouts, those are still going to be taxing the energy system at hand that beta-alanine supplementation benefits, and therefore you can expect a notable increase in performance there as well. So hopefully that illustrates a bit better the idea of what beta-alanine is actually helping with. And I did want to put this little comparison right here because more people I should say, are familiar with creatine. And creatine is most commonly known for benefiting exercise in which you hit fatigue within 5 to 30 seconds. So sprinting, heavy lifting, etc., stuff like that. Creatine just allows you to push a little more weight or a few more reps on those sort of stuff, right? Beta-alanine is doing the same exact thing, just for bouts of activity that are slightly lower intensity. So that said, let's assume you heard all that and you think beta-alanine supplementation would be a good thing for you. Let's talk about how to actually take it. Now, beta-alanine is one of the most common ingredients that is included in pre-workout supplements. The problem is it has absolutely no business, in my opinion, being in a pre-workout supplement. The reason being is that it has no acute effect, meaning that it's not like you take it and 30 minutes later you feel something. The same way, like the way for beta-alanine supplementation to do anything, the carnosine must saturate within your muscles. And this happens over a prolonged period of time, not acutely like within an hour, around the time when you would take a pre-workout supplement. Just as a quick side note, I do think most pre-workout supplements are a waste of money compared to just regular caffeine. I'll make another video on why I think that, but just a little digression there. So I did want to note that, again, this is the same concept as creatine. Now, creatine is something you take every day. It does not matter when you take it. Your muscles saturate with creatine, and then therefore, after that, you get the benefits from creatine supplementation. Beta-alanine is the same insofar that you take beta-alanine once or twice a day. You take it every day, or at least most days. It does not really matter when you take it. Over time, your muscles will begin to saturate with carnosine, and you'll start to see that benefit in those sorts of exercises over time. So as I note here, the aforementioned paper notes that 4 to 6 grams per day is kind of that optimal dose. I don't think there's any data on how dosing of beta-alanine relates to your body weight. You probably can infer that if you are a person of lighter weight, that less grams per day is probably fine. And if you're a person of heavier body weight, then more grams per day is probably going to be needed. Actually, let me backtrack there. Not just body weight. If you're a person who is currently, let's say, lower muscle mass, and therefore less room for the carnosine to saturate in, you could probably assume 4 grams, and then, vice versa. If you have more muscle mass, you could probably assume that higher doses, 6 grams, might be more beneficial. As I said, it does not matter much what time of day you take it. It doesn't matter if you take it in the morning, the afternoon, pre-workout, post-workout, doesn't matter. There might be some benefit to splitting it up into 2 doses. So for example, instead of 4 grams per day, doing like 2 grams in the morning, 2 grams at night. But I do think convenience rules all, and I don't think that it's going to make that much of a difference if you do 1 dose versus 2 doses in a day. And again, it should be taken every day, or at least most days of the week. So potential side effects. Paresthesia is really the most common thing here, and that's kind of those the tingling, numbness, and stuff like that in your fingers. If you've ever taken a pre-workout supplement and you've noticed that sort of tingling, the beta-alanine is probably what's causing that. Now, if you feel this in response to beta-alanine supplementation, there's nothing sinister about this, meaning like it's not causing any damage. It's just a feeling you might feel. Now, this usually will go away, as you kind of take it, again, and you do have to take it chronically for it to really have any effect. So you can expect this to kind of diminish. But if this is something that you do want to try to minimize, just because if you don't like it, then splitting it into that 2 doses, as I mentioned previously, is one way to go about minimizing this. So to wrap this up, just some final thoughts on beta-alanine supplementation just from me. I've compared it to creatine a lot in this video because in a lot of ways they do the same thing, right? They just affect different energy systems in your body. I don't think it should be prioritized over creatine. I do think the benefits of creatine are more widespread apart from just exercise performance, and the magnitude of benefit from creatine supplementation is going to be greater. Now, again, like I said, it's not like one energy system is working at a time. They all are working all at the same time. And there is evidence to show that beta-alanine and creatine supplementation, when they're combined, the benefits are greater than either one alone. So in other words, it's not like a 1 + 1 = 2 thing, it's a 1 + 1 = 3. And again, like I said, I wouldn't prioritize beta-alanine supplementation over creatine. And in other words, if you have some budget you want to spend on a supplement and you have to choose either creatine or beta-alanine, I would choose creatine. But if you are taking creatine and you want that extra benefit, adding beta-alanine to the regimen will benefit you. And furthermore, neither are super expensive really, which is kind of why I feel safe making that recommendation. Sodium bicarbonate is another supplement that actually a similar mechanism as beta-alanine insofar that it benefits the same energy system. There's also likely an additive effect, as I mentioned before, creatine and beta-alanine. I do currently have an article on sodium bicarbonate, not a video yet, but I will work on that. I'll link that below if you're interested. And I just thought that was worth breaking up because it is going to benefit roughly the same thing. So, based on everything we said, I wouldn't call this a need to have. Given the current state of the research on creatine, I would call creatine a need to have in both the performance and health perspective. However, like I said, you can get it for pretty cheap. Like it's not an overly expensive supplement. And there are real benefits to be had here. So I think it's at least worth your consideration. And finally, your choice of product, if you're going to buy beta-alanine, should be based off of 1, price, and 2, third-party testing. Now, third-party testing is a supplement or a supplement company goes through lab testing from a third-party company to ensure that what is on the label is actually inside the product, because you'd be surprised at how many non-tested supplements are just complete lies on their label. So I think third-party testing should be an absolute need in any supplement you're going to buy. And finally, another point here is I would try to find your beta-alanine in an isolated product, right? So not in some sort of pre-workout supplement, because you're probably not going to take your pre-workout every day. Certainly not if you're training. Sorry, I meant to say certainly not if you're not training on a day. So with that said, that concludes everything that I have to say about beta-alanine supplementation. And I hope you found that somewhat helpful or interesting and, hopefully find some answers that you might be looking for. And I will see you next time. All right, have a good one.